Hello, my name is Matthias, welcome to the FPL Scope and this video where I'm going to talk about what happened in Game Week 6 and how I did with my wildcard selection. Just in general, how there's been some backlash now towards content creators because a lot of people have gone with Game Week 6 wildcards and it hasn't gone that well. In some cases, a lot worse than mine as well. So yeah, I want to touch a little bit about that and then just talk about my team in general, what happened in Game Week 6 and my thoughts in general about Game Week 6 and beyond that as well, what's going to happen in the future. So I haven't really prepared too much for this video, so it might be a bit jumbled up. I'm not quite sure it's all going to make sense, but hopefully you can bear with me and it'll make some sense to you. But yeah, first and foremost, let's go into what happened in Game Week 6. I did use my wildcard, like I said, for this game week. And I did that mostly because I really wanted to have triple Arsenal. I had 0 Arsenal players in Game Week 5, and I also wanted Mbuemo on top of that. In the end, I also managed to get Watkins, who managed to get 11 points, so really happy to have him as well. But I did have Solanke last game week, who got 6 points, so it's not that big of a difference. It might change for Game Week 7 when Watkins has Man United at home and Solanke has Brighton away. Those fixtures seem a lot better now than they did before Game Week 6 as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But mostly, I just felt like I had some price concerns as well. I had some price changes that were going to affect my team. I had, for example, Muniz up front for Fulham. I had Eze. I had a couple players going down in price, and then there were a couple players going up in price. And on top of that, like I said, I just wanted triple Arsenal and Mbuemo especially as new players. So I ended up getting 47 points in the end, which is less than I would have gotten with my wildcard squad, and that's mostly just down to picking Rico Lewis rather than picking Josko Guardiola, because Guardiola scored a goal, Lewis didn't, and they obviously didn't keep a clean sheet either, so Guardiola ended up with 9 points and Lewis ended up with 2 points. That's the big difference basically, and also the fact that I sold Salah obviously on the wildcard. I did that sort of begrudgingly. I said before the game week that I thought he was going to be a good player, but I did back Saka to be the best captain's option against Leicester, and honestly, I don't think I was too far away from that prediction either. Obviously, Salah got more points than Saka, but looking at what actually happened in the games, and Salah not looking at his best against Wolves, I thought Liverpool would be a lot more dominant in that game than they actually ended up being. Arsenal did end up winning 4-2 in the end against Leicester, but it sort of took a long while for them to get the points. But Saka, he did well enough without getting assists and goals to get a bonus point. It was 3 bonus points at first, and then they changed it to 1 bonus point the day after. But I think Saka looked really, really good, and I don't really regret using him as captain. I think he was potentially one of the best captaincy options. Obviously, you have the big talking point of Cole Palmer, who ended with 25 points. He would have been the best captain by far. And I think that's like my only regret when it comes to captaincy. I went against Haaland as captain, which was kind of a brave decision, I guess you could say. I did that because I figured he would be bad against Newcastle away, because Newcastle are pretty good at home. But when I did that, first and foremost, when I went for a differential captain, I'm kind of annoyed that I didn't go with someone more obscure, like someone like Watkins, for example, who got 11 points, or if I had the wherewithal to have Cole Palmer in the team as well. But I was never really close to considering Cole Palmer. Like I said, I haven't really mentioned him in my wildcard videos leading up to Game Week 6, and I also didn't have him in the FPL differentials video as well leading up to Game Week 6 either. I actually had Foden instead, who ended up not playing again from start, so yeah, he's kind of not the best pick. But again, I said the video would be a bit jumbled up, so I'm just going to go off the riff here and talk about Palmer a little bit in this section. Palmer is obviously amazing, and I think I thought at least, or maybe I said towards the end of the last season as well, that I figured a lot of people would be put off by his price this season because he was due to get a major price hike from last season when he was 5.0 from the start of the game. And he got a price hike up to 10.5, but considering what he did last season, 10.5 wasn't even that big of a price either, because he is obviously an amazing player, and we know Chelsea weren't that good last season, and now Chelsea actually look really, really good. And I didn't especially expect Brighton to be that bad defensively. I thought that was going to be a tougher game for Chelsea. I figured their best games were behind them, so I didn't think Palmer would be that good of an option after seeing him against Bournemouth, for example, where he did absolutely nothing. Yes, he did score against West Ham, but West Ham have been atrocious defensively. So yeah, I didn't really consider Palmer, but obviously he's a great pick, and like I said previously, I should have known that he would be an undervalued pick, because he did perform at like a Salah type level last season where he's worth like 12 million, but he's only, I'd say only now 10.7 million, which is still a really good price for him. So Currently, I'm not too fussed about bringing him in like straight away. I think even if I was on a wildcard for Game Week 7, I probably wouldn't pick him for Game Week 7, but I'd have a plan to get him in for Game Week 9. Because I think the two next fixtures, Nottingham Forest at home, we've seen what Nottingham Forest can do at Anfield. They managed to get a 1-0 win there, and they're really good defensively. And then Palmer has Liverpool in Game Week 8 as well. So I think for the next 2 game weeks, I think going without Palmer is fine. But then in Game Week 9, I'm probably looking at selling Saka to get Palmer, because that's when Saka gets a tough game against Liverpool. And then he has Newcastle away, and then he has another pretty tough game. I can't remember off the top of my head which game that was, but he has 3 pretty tough games in a row there, Saka, from Game Week 9 onwards. So I think what's going to become template as well when we come to Game Week 9 is going to be a lot of people moving from Saka to Palmer, because I think that makes a lot of sense. So luckily for me, I have Havertz already in the team, so I have that Arsenal cover, and that makes it easier for me to get back to Saka and in around Game Week 12, 13-ish, when Arsenal's fixtures get better again. And then I can have that triple up on Arsenal again pretty easily. So yeah, not too fussed about the Palmer thing. Did not expect Chelsea to destroy them and win 4-2. I think I just underestimated Chelsea in general this season. I think in my table prediction, if I remember correctly, I think I actually had Crystal Palace above Chelsea in the table prediction, which obviously sounds ludicrous now, but it's just everything that has happened to Chelsea the last few years. I just didn't have any faith in them, and I thought Crystal Palace would look really good this season, but obviously they're lacking Olise now, who was a major benefactor to them last season, and he's proven that in Bayern as well. He's been fantastic at Bayern. So yeah, I've gotten some things wrong, but I think I'm pretty good at adjusting and not being too prideful, I guess, with my decisions. But at the same time, I don't really regret using my wildcard in Game Week 6. Like, knowing what I knew going into the game week, I expected more points from Saka and Havertz, and from the expected numbers at least, they should have had more points. Havertz, I think that it's sort of lying a bit. The final goal, the actual goal that he got was kind of lucky, and that's where a lot of his XG comes from as well, or at least like part of his XG comes from. So yeah, I think Havertz got about what he deserved in 6 points, but I think Saka got a lot less points than what he should have had, because he had 8 key passes, meaning 8 passes that led to shots, and 4 of them led to big chances as well, including one where he had a corner for Gabriel and they almost scored again from a corner. So I think I was kind of unlucky with the Saka pick. And Mbeumo obviously delivered as expected against West Ham. I thought he would score. And also I was really happy going with Watkins and Rodgers. Watkins is someone that wasn't really picked that much on a wildcard because he is really expensive and people wanted to fit in someone like Luis Diaz, but I decided to go against Luis Diaz and go with Dibbling instead, which would give me enough money to get Watkins rather than someone like Calvert-Lewin, for example. That paid off. And then I also managed, with that, I was actually able to start Rodgers. I know a lot of people benched Rodgers and had the likes of Calvert-Lewin and stuff in front of him and Luis Diaz. So luckily I managed to escape that and have Watkins, so I'm really happy about this upcoming game week as well against Man United at home, seeing how bad Man United look currently. And especially now without Bruno, it's going to be even better for Watkins. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the team. Obviously, I would have gotten more points if I had waited one more week. But at the same time, I think if I was to wildcard in Game Week 7 rather than Game Week 6, I probably wouldn't have Watkins in terms of long-term potential. And I think he can score a lot of points in the match against Man United. And I don't think I would have picked... There's someone else as well that I probably wouldn't have picked. I can't remember now on the top of my head. Probably Saka potentially. I don't know, maybe. We'll see what happens when I do my wildcard draft later on this week, because I do a weekly wildcard draft series where I basically try to wildcard every week and see what I would have done if I had the wildcard still available. So we'll get to see that on Wednesday. But yeah, we'll get to see if it pays off in the end, the wildcard or not. I think Watkins could help me get some points back, obviously. Still waiting for Semenyo to play. I'm recording this before the Bournemouth Southampton game. But that doesn't really affect anything either, because I had Semenyo from Game Week 1 and I had him before I wildcarded as well. So I did in the end score less points with the wildcard than if I wouldn't have wildcarded, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise. But most likely, probably would have been better off waiting for one more week to do a transfer, I guess. Trent is, I think, is the other player that I was thinking about, who's someone that I would potentially remove, but I don't think so, actually. I think I will still pick Trent in a Game Week 7 wildcard draft as well, because I think he's just really, really good. But yeah, a bit jumbled up together there in general. But yeah, in terms of my overall rank and my experience so far this season in FPL, I'm ranked at around 1.5 million, which I think is decent at this point of the season. And I think it's actually better than what it would have been ranked if I was ranked 1.5 million last season, because I think a lot of the people in front of me are the likes of people who have had Palmer from Game Week 1 and haven't really paid that much attention, because a lot of like the experts, as they call them, went without Palmer at the start of the season, which was a huge mistake because Nkunku didn't play at all, and Palmer has proven to be much better value than what we expected. So I think a lot of people are more casual managers. Again, I don't want to use these terms because it's a lot like controversy around them as well. There's been a lot of backlash towards like content creators and so-called experts lately on Twitter, especially, or X as it's called. But yeah, I think a lot of the people in front of me currently in the rankings are people that don't really pay as much attention to the game as me and a lot of other people. So I think in the end, I'm going to get a better rank than what I would have had last season if I was ranked 1.5 million at this point of the season. But again, it's really early. It's very little between the ranks as well. Could easily, anyone, me or someone else, could easily shoot up the ranks quite quickly the next few game weeks. It's only been 6 game weeks so far, and it's not even that much of the season played so far. There's 38 game weeks in total, obviously, so a lot left to play in general. But I think when it comes to like the backlash towards content creators, and especially like the likes of the Fantasy Football Hub and stuff as well, and their AI tool, like I'm one of the few managers who's not really using AI that much, or even like underlying numbers. I don't really pay that much attention to it in terms of compared to like the other FPL content creators, at least on the space. But at the same time, I don't think like the template thing is like dead, or I don't think template is like necessarily bad. But I've also always said that I wanted the game to be more diverse and have more ways to get points than just picking the same 15 players or 11 players that we did last season. Like last season, it was so easy to just have Palmer, Saka, Haaland, Son all at the same time. And it was really, really boring. And I'm really happy to see this season that there's a lot of different ways to get points. I've seen people without Haaland from Game Week 1 to Game Week 6 who have done well, which is obviously a huge feat because Haaland has been one of the best players so far in Fantasy Premier League. I've seen people go without Salah who've done well, people are going without Palmer who've done well. Like, there's a lot of different ways to get points now this season, and it's more of a tactical game now with a lot of different transfers that you can use. You can save up the transfers, obviously. The chips are going to be changed, and we haven't even seen the most of the changes for the season, because we know later on in the season there will be less double game weeks and stuff. So I think in general this is going to be a tougher year for people like me who pay a lot of attention to FPL and think about FPL for a long time, because the whole game has basically changed. Both the rules for the game and also the game weeks coming up later on in the season have changed. So I don't think people have quite adjusted yet and know what's going to be the best team going forward, and which players are the best players to select, and how to use these different tactics that we now have at our disposal with all these transfers. So I think, yeah, it's just going to be a bit of a period where you have to adjust and re-evaluate how you play FPL. I think there's a lot of different things that's going to come up in the future that's going to be really interesting to see. But yeah, kind of rambling now. Try to collect myself and find like a what's the, not red herring, but like a silver lining, I guess, to the whole thing. I also think the start of the season is notoriously just more random, I guess. Like the AI predictor tools and stuff are going to be worse at the start of the season because there's less data to collect, basically. I think pretty much like looking at expected goals and stuff, even at like a 5-game, 6-game sample is kind of faulty. I think there is like a lot of flaws with expected goals and expected assists and stuff that I could potentially go into more in a different video in the future. But yeah, I don't really pay too much attention to that personally. I think watching what I can see with my eyes, using the FPL test, which I do every single week. I do recaps of all the games, and that's going to be a video for tomorrow where I'm going to go through all the games from Game Week 6 and what happened in those games. I think that's more important, especially now early in the season where we have less data. But I think as the season goes along, we get more data. The data-driven managers will get more of an advantage, and it will help them more in the long haul. But yeah, I'm not sure if this makes a lot of sense, this video, but yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about for this video. But when it comes to the wildcard, just let's talk about the actual team for a little bit and what I actually did and the decisions I made and if I regret them or not. Starting a goal, I picked Robert Sanchez from Chelsea, and yes, Chelsea have been amazing offensively, but defensively they have been a bit more suspect. Sanchez actually was hugely at fault for one of the goals that he conceded against Brighton, his former team. So yeah, I'm not sure about Sanchez. I was between him and Sels, and luckily for me at least, Sels didn't get a clean sheet either, so I didn't really lose points from this game week. But I think long term, I'm not too happy about Sanchez, but at the same time, there's no goalkeeper that I'm really that excited about. So yeah, it doesn't really matter that much in the end. But yeah, it was kind of disappointing to see him just concede like straight away, and then Chelsea dominating up front with Palmer and Jackson stuff looking really, really good. Players that I should really consider going into the future, and I will consider them as well. I think my plan is, like I said, to get Palmer in game week 9 for Saka, and then I'm probably going to double up with Jackson in game week 12, depending on what happens with Chelsea as well. If Nkunku is all of a sudden in the team, maybe he becomes an option. Maybe Jadon Sancho, who's looked good so far, becomes an option. Maybe Pedro Neto plays more at that point. But yeah, I think Palmer and Jackson are basically the two main Chelsea players that I'm targeting now offensively going forward in this season, but not for now with the two fixtures that they have against Nottingham Forest at home and then Liverpool away in the next fixture after that. So but yeah, let's move on to the defense. Going with Trent Alexander-Arnold as well on the wildcard in Game Week 6, and like I said, I'm probably going to keep him for the weekly wildcard draft Game Week 7 edition. I think Trent is just too good in general. I think Liverpool have been really, really good this season. Obviously, they conceded against Wolves, but it was a mistake from Konate, basically, that made sure that they conceded a goal. I don't think that's going to happen every single game. And Liverpool have just been really good defensively so far this season. Haven't really had the best opponents either, so maybe that will change once they get tougher matches. But I think Trent's clean sheet potential and also attacking potential is just too high not to go with, basically. So don't really regret picking him either. He's been one of my favorite players, or one of my most valued players, I guess, this season in terms of players that I really want to have in my team, even though he hasn't really provided the goods, conceding against Nottingham Forest and conceding against Wolves so far, which I didn't really expect. But yeah, I think Trent is still a fantastic player to have. So yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. Gabriel, Arsenal again, they conceded 2 goals from very little XG against Leicester, and we've seen Arsenal all season. They've been so good defensively, and Gabriel is just basically going to be a mainstay in the team. I don't think I'm going to sell him at any point, but obviously getting him in for Guardiola on the wild card really hurt me because Guardiola got 9 points and Gabriel got 1 point, but I don't think that was expected. I think I had more expectations of Arsenal keeping a clean sheet against Leicester, and looking at the games, that looked more likely as well. Newcastle got more chances against City than Leicester did against Arsenal, but still, Guardiola got more points because he got a goal going forward, which you can't really expect that much from Guardiola when he's placed in the centre-back position that he did play in this game. So you can see I had a dilemma between Guardiola and Lewis. I did I could have gone with Lewis instead, but then I would have had to sacrifice Watkins and get Solanke instead in attack, and that got me some points as well. So I did get minus points in the end. I got 5 points more from Watkins, but I lost 7 points from going with Lewis rather than Guardiola. So I ended up with 2 points minus from those two moves. But I don't really think I regret it either, because I think Lewis played more attackingly than Guardiola did in that game. Lewis played also 68 minutes, which I think is pretty good for his playing time going forward. And I mostly came to that decision of going with Lewis. Well, mostly it was down to the leaks that told me that Lewis was going to start this game week. But also just looking at the games that Rodri missed last season, Lewis played in pretty much every single one of them, apart from like a couple where Rodri missed out. So I think that's part of Guardiola's tactics still, that Lewis gets to play a lot when Rodri is not there. We saw that at the start of the season as well. So I think he's actually pretty good when it comes to minutes, and he's cheaper than Guardiola. And when Lewis and Guardiola play together, Lewis is the more attacking player. So Guardiola got the goal this time. It really hurt me because I've had Guardiola from game week 1 through game week 5, and I really considered him for game week 6 wildcard as well. But he managed to score once I sold him, which is kind of annoying, but that's what happens, I guess, sometimes. Saka, like I mentioned a couple times already, he could have had a lot more points, got 6 points, and Mbeumo with 9 points. And Brentford is actually interesting because I thought that they would score. I thought Mbeumo would be a really good asset against West Ham, and yes, he scored. He got some bonus points, got 9 points, fantastic. But after that opening goal, after 1 minute, Brentford didn't really create any chances at all against West Ham, which I think is really interesting. I'm going to talk more about that game in the video tomorrow, where I'll talk about every game in Game Week 6, but really interesting to see how much better West Ham were as a defense with Todibo as a center back. And Mavropanos actually came on and played as right back, and that looked pretty good as well for West Ham. So maybe Lopetegui has turned the corner defensively, because after that opening goal, after 1 minute, Brentford didn't really create much chances at all. I could also say something about Mbeumo and Brentford's attacking potential without Jan Vissa now. He's injured. That might affect Mbeumo in negative ways, but I think Mbeumo's next 3 fixtures in total, 2 of them are really, really good. He's obviously someone to keep as well, and someone that I don't regret at all having on my wildcard, especially seeing as he got 9 points. Semenyo remains to be seen what happens with him, but I'm pretty happy to have him against Southampton at home and then Leicester away next week. I think those are 2 really good fixtures. Never really thought about getting rid of Semenyo. I've had him from game week 1, and I didn't really consider selling him. Now that he's a super popular pick as well, let's see what happens tonight as I'm recording this. Rodgers, really happy that I had him and started him. I think him as a 4th midfielder rather than a 5th midfielder, or as a 7th attacker rather than an 8th attacker is more suited to him, because I think Rodgers is still an amazing player and an amazing pick in general. He looked really good again. He's a fantastic player, like I just said, and I'm really happy that I started him and got some points from him, scoring a goal from the Watkins assist as well. Haaland 2 points. I did say before the game week that I was going to go against him as captain, because I thought Newcastle at St. James's Park would be a tough task, and I was kind of proven right. But at the same time, Haaland could have easily had several goals in that game as well. He had there was a chance at the back post where Trippier just got in ahead of him and managed to clear it to a corner. That would have been like super high XG if Haaland was actually able to get the shot in there. Usually Trippier falls asleep on those assignments and Haaland gets a goal there. But this time Trippier actually paid attention and did his job defensively. And that was a huge chance for Haaland. Also several other chances where Gundogan was just in the way. Gundogan had a terrible game. I'm going to get more into the game as well in the video tomorrow. But yeah, Gundogan was majorly at fault for Haaland not getting any points, especially when the goalkeeper was slightly far out, and then Gundogan and Haaland came 2-on-1 against the defender, and Gundogan just shot it from like 30 yards instead of passing it to Haaland, who's the best striker in the world. Again, that could have been a goal for Haaland as well. So Haaland still looked good, even though he blanked. Obviously, when he blanks, that's going to be a massive shift because he costs that much money. So anyone without Haaland will have a great game week when he blanks, obviously, because he's that expensive. But I think Haaland is still someone that is absolutely fantastic, especially with the fixtures that they have. So obviously no regrets keeping him and no regrets not captaining him either, I guess, because I think Saka was the better captaincy choice this week. And Watkins potentially could have been as well. Speaking of Watkins, got 11 points, a goal and an assist for Aston Villa. He looks really good now, plays 90 minutes pretty much every game now. So it doesn't seem like Duran is going to take his minutes either. It seems like Watkins is going to be a 90-minute guy and Duran is going to play alongside Watkins. So Watkins looks like a really, really good pick in general, but obviously Aston Villa's fixtures are going to dwindle eventually. So I'm still looking to potentially sell him in Game Week 9. That could also be another route for me to Palmer. If I don't want to sell Saka, I could downgrade Watkins to a really cheap forward and get enough money for Palmer that way instead, I guess. So that's also another option that I have. But yeah, Watkins looks really good. Man United at home next week. I think that's really good for him. Havertz ended up with 6 points, got the goal in the end there, which was kind of lucky, but at the same time he had another huge chance just a couple minutes before that and had other pretty good chances earlier in the game as well. So could have had more, could have had less. In the end, I'm pretty happy with the 6 points that I got from Havertz as well. He matched Solanke at least, which is what I hoped for at least. And then when it comes to the bench, just a lot of cheap players on the bench. We'll get to see what happens with Dibbling against Bournemouth and if he looks like a decent pick still. Hopefully he gets to keep playing 60 plus, preferably 90 minutes going forward. That would be really nice. Mykolenko conceded, but Everton again, with Branthwaite in as a centre-back rather than Michael Keane, looks so much better defensively. Conceding less than 1 XG against Crystal Palace, who are still a good team. Even though Crystal Palace have been disappointing so far this season, they're still a good team that can create a lot of chances. So that's a huge plus sign for Everton. So I really like having Mykolenko as like my main guy off the bench if needed. And yeah, I can talk a lot about team structure as well when it comes to having a pretty solid 4th defender at least. But yeah, then we have Greaves as my final defender, and I think honestly now Van den Berg looks like a better pick. He is 4.0 for Brentford, who have better fixtures. He played as a right back and would look more attacking. But Greaves, again, is going to be someone that is just stuck on the bench mostly. I'm not going to use him that much. So yeah, it doesn't really matter that much either. But that's pretty much the team. I had some dilemmas. I got the better side of the bargain with with Watkins over Solanke, but I'd lost points from doing Lewis over Guardiola. And then the goalkeeper is kind of 50-50. So in the end, pretty happy with my score, all things considered, compared to everyone else that got less points than me. Really happy that I have Watkins and started Rodgers. That was a huge plus for me this game week at least. And it leaves me in a pretty good position going forward as well. So yeah, keep faith. If you're struggling so far this season, I don't think it should be over by any means. You shouldn't give up. I think you should still just keep calm. I think that's the most important thing in FPL. Just like stay cool, calm, and collected. Don't get too emotionally invested, and don't get your teams don't do favoritism towards your teams as well, because that could have some really bad effects. Like I've been interested in bringing in Bowen the last few game weeks, and West Ham, and especially Bowen as well, looks a bit less important in West Ham's style of play than he has done in the past. So yeah, that could also affect you negatively if you get too emotionally invested in your own teams as well, and hoping that they will do well. So yeah, just a couple of tips there. I can probably make it more structured and sensical, I guess, the opposite of the nonsensical video about like tactics and what to make note of in FPL in general, because I have a lot of thoughts. I'm kind of different than a lot of other content creators, I guess, in terms of me using more the eye test than the numbers, especially this early in the season, like I have mentioned, I think, throughout this video. So yeah, I might make a more constructive, more prepared video in the future about that. But yeah, just wanted to talk in general about a couple different things that I think about FPL and Wildcard and GW6 and content creators and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm just a small content creator anyway, so I'm not really getting any backlash from anything that I would have said either in this rambling video. But yeah, that's enough of me rambling, I guess. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like these types of videos. Maybe you don't, maybe you do. Please let me know in the comments what you think in general and how your game week went. Maybe you didn't wildcard, maybe you got a huge score, maybe you had Palmer, maybe you captained Palmer. I saw some of the players in my fantasy league, in my mini league, that you can join, by the way. League code is hpxeri, the FPL Scope mini league. I saw a couple of people there that are going to be featured on the FPL Scope podcast or in my team selection video this week who had Palmer as captain. So obviously that was a huge score. That's more points than I have so far with my 47 points before some annual plays at least. So yeah, congrats to anyone that did that. I am very jealous. Having a differential captain who scores 4 goals when Haaland blanks must feel absolutely amazing. And yeah, that's just the last thing I want to talk about. Like the Haaland thing, he blanked, and that felt like a huge victory to me. So like that felt like a really like momentous moment, but in the end, it didn't really make much of a difference because Saka got 3 points. I earned 1 point from that, but just surviving like going without Haaland as captain feels huge, but it doesn't really affect much, really. But it would have done if I had Palmer instead as captain, obviously. But yeah, that's the final random point that I want to talk about. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time, and goodbye.